In the early 1970s, Victoria Street is a stunning boulevard running from King's Cross to Potts Point, lined with leafy plane trees and flanked by 19th century terrace houses. The western escarpment overlooks the Domain, the Botanic Gardens and magnificent Sydney Harbour.
Oh, Victoria Street's a very interesting street. It's a very cosmopolitan street. At that time, it was a real mix of expensive accommodation and working class accommodation. There's a lot of the old stunning Victorian houses were in that era were broken up into flats and were low cost accommodation.
Frank Teeman is a successful and wealthy Jewish migrant who's made his fortune from lingerie. He wants to change Victoria Street forever. Between March 1970 and June 71, he spends nearly $7 million purchasing properties. Teeman doesn't anticipate any opposition and in fact believes that the demolition of old terraces for chic new buildings, some as high as 45 stories, is not only a good idea, but will be hugely profitable.
With charming restaurants and green areas.
Frank had this vision of creating Victoria Street as Sydney's equivalent of Sutton Place in New York, a fabulous local environment which he believed that he could bring to Sydney.
In April 1973, Teeman's company sends out eviction notices to around 400 Victoria Street residents, ordering they vacate their homes immediately. About 1/4 of them comply, while others who have protected tenancies are given cash incentives of up to $2,000 to leave.
Because it was reasonably high profile, that in the fair bit of media reports of it, I thought it'd be pretty silly of them to come at anything really heavy. I was mistaken in that.
Defiant locals form the Victoria Street Residents Action Group and are determined to halt the evictions and oppose the redevelopment.
I was one of a number of people who felt pretty strongly about it. As I say, I'd lived in the street for quite a few years. So I became the face of the... I guess I was the resident who was most involved in the formation of the action group.
At his home in the early hours of April 14, 1973, Arthur King is woken by intruders and kidnapped. After nearly 3 days, King is released under the condition that he leaves his home in Victoria Street and has no further involvement with the Residents' Action Group. He agrees to the demands.
It was really a political battle as well, in one sense, because you had Frank, the capitalist, up against the residents, the working class, so to speak, who stood on the other side of this ideological fence.
We were aware of the fires that were started to get residents out. We were aware of the squatters down the other end of the street where Victoria Point development is now. We were aware of the thugs that were threatening and bullying people to get tenants out at that time.
Significantly, the Residents' Action Group has an ally. The New South Wales Builders Labourers Federation, under Jack Mundey, imposes a ban on the demolition of Victoria Street.
It was a change of focus for the BLF. They weren't just fighting union issues, they were now fighting a social issue. And the BLF were approached and they put a green ban on Victoria Street.
And I warn now that any employer who attempts to demolish any building in the area upon which we've imposed a ban will be driven out of the industry for keeps. He won't work in the building industry again.